Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today on using Microsoft 365 Teams, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint to manage purchase requests. This subject has been quite a lot of interest we've had in it over the last, well, for years, really. Everybody's been interested in improving their purchasing request process, and using Office 365 and SharePoint and Teams for that makes a whole lot of sense. So we're really glad you could join this webinar and see what we have to offer here. We think it's a great solution. It involves using Microsoft List and SharePoint and Teams and Nitro Engage bot, and Ryan will be here to show you. Before we get going, let me introduce myself. I'm Scott Restivo, CEO of CRO Canyon Software, where we produce the Nitro Studio, and that underlies these applications, the purchase request application. We also make the applications, the help desk, and work orders, equipment tracking, and many other applications, as well as we sell the Nitro Studio right out. I'm joined by Ryan. Ryan's our sales executive. He's been with us for over 5 years now, and he'll be glad to show you the purchase request system once we get going. As I said, CRO Canyon Software, well, I haven't said it yet, but I'll say it now. CRO Canyon Software has been in business 24 years. We're on the GSA. We work in the SharePoint on-premises. We work in Office 365, M365, commercial cloud. We work in the GCC and also the GCC High. We have a whole range of products across the whole Microsoft stack there. We're also a preferred partner. We've been one of their preferred partners in business applications for many years. And we're California certified small business. We do a lot of work in government, California government, county, state, cities, but also all across the whole United States, federal government, of course, and international. We have partners in Germany, Australia. We have a group in India, so we're across the whole world right now. It's actually quite exciting to be selling software at that range and extent. Just to get going, before we get right into the Purchase Quest program, to let you know, we'll have a recording of this available for anyone who wants to look at it later or couldn't attend or whatever. We'll put it up on YouTube. And also, there's a question box in the GoToWebinar screen, and that question box, feel free to enter any question you want in there, and we'll try and answer it during the webinar. But if we don't get to it during it, usually we are able to get to the questions during it. But if we don't, we'll be glad to correspond with you by email and answer those questions. Of course, what we really hope, and of course, that's just part of our business, is that you'll get in touch with us, a one-on-one demo. We can show you exactly, because as Ryan will show you during this webinar, purchasing is kind of idiosyncratic to each organization, but our program is very adaptable in that regard, in that it can take in, however you're doing purchasing now, whatever process is, a lot of times it could be an interface to a back-end system. It could be an ERP or financial system, or you can use this system that we have complete to produce purchase requests and purchase orders, or you could back end it to a procurement department. This would be the front end, and the back end would go to a procurement department. So those kind of things are very good to talk about individually and say, hey, CRO Canyon, hey, Ryan, hey, Scott, can you do this? Can your program do this? And 9 out of 10 times it's yes, but it's good to have that conversation. And it's also what intrigues us very much in working with software. It's just really fascinating to work with all these different companies and government agencies and education and nonprofits across the world, and find out everybody's story. It's frankly, I've been doing this many years, I've been here since the beginning, and one of the most interesting things to me is to hear everybody's story and what they're doing and how we can help them improve their business processes. In this case, we're talking specifically about purchasing. So let's go to the next slide. We're jumping into the demo right away. Okay, a little bit about CRO Canyon Software before we get there. Like I said, we have the Nitro Studio Forms and Workflow platform, a great way to build forms, whether it's forms, workflows, processes, applications, whether you're on-premises or, like I said, in those different versions of the Office 365. People use it all over to replace InfoPath forms or Lotus Notes or other legacy programs. Some people still use email and spreadsheets and even paper and pencil. Anything you can do, get on, use the Nitro Studio, build a really great solution. We can help with that, give advice. We have Nitro training. People become what we call Nitronauts, and they become very experienced in using Nitro Studio, building some really amazing things that surprise us, frankly, when we see what people are doing with our Nitro Studio. And it's very interactive. We work with you, you work with us, and we come up with solutions that really fit the exact needs of what you need, what you require to make your business or organization run efficiently. The other thing we have is Nitro applications, which are out of the box, built on Nitro Studio. And one of them, of course, is this purchase request we're going to look at today, but we also have the help desk, work order, equipment tracking, assets, just all over the place in terms of what kind of solutions we can provide many industries. And like I said, it's an exciting part of our work to see these solutions go in place and really take off. The other thing we just started getting into in the last year or so is governance, because as we work with people doing business process automation using our solutions on especially on the M365 platform, we find that governance is critical to keeping things under control, controlling costs, avoiding apps sprawl, keeping security in line, and staying compliant. So we added that on. We have a partner we work with, and the two of us together, the partner and us, are making a really great solution out there. We have a really great solution available for governance that really goes right along with the using Office 365, Microsoft 365, and Teams, but also you want this governance aspect to it. So we have that going on. We also have our Nitro Engage bot, which I think Ryan will show you some of that today, and that's kind of an interesting tool that runs inside of Teams. With that, is that it, Krista, or is there more slides here? Oh, okay. There's two ways to use this program, and that's kind of what I alluded to before. Two ways to use the purchase request program. One is just a standalone program. It's okay. You don't need to back end it to anything or integrate it with another solution. But if you do need that, we have that capability with these ERPs or financial systems. Some that we worked with were NetSuite, QuickBooks, Fiscal, SAP. So there's all kinds of, let us know what your situation is, and we'll be glad to see how we can integrate with it. Because these days on the cloud, on the web, everything's connected, whether it's APIs or REST API or webhooks, or there's all kinds of ways to put leg bones connected to the hip bone kind of thing going there. So it's like all just one big interactive network of things networked together, of course. And that's, our program connects with your solution, other solutions. You get the idea. I mean, that's what it's all about. So that's what we wanted to point out. Now, do you want to jump right in, or we have another slide here? I mean, I didn't review this deck well.
We're ready. I think we're ready.
Is that it?
Yeah,
okay.
I think we're good.
All right, so just let me introduce Ryan. Ryan will come in. Again, questions if you have them, they're right there. And, oh, good, we got someone already with a question, good. And then also contact us. You know what? sales@CROCanyon.com. Easy to remember, sales@CROCanyon.com. Send us an email, give us a call, go to our website, CROCanyon.com. We're glad to talk to you about more detail about this. With that, I'll leave it to Ryan.
Thank you, Scott. The knee bone connected to the hip bone actually got a chuckle out of me. I thought that was funny. So yeah, the purchase request application. We're going to talk about the unique experiences for each level of, permission group, I guess the best way to say it, of how they can interact with the system, what their interface looks like, that being end user, technician, air quotes technician, backend staff, and then that admin aspect as well. So I think, the easiest way to start is submitting a purchase request, right? What does that look like? How do we go about that? What are the different channels in which we can get that done? So first and foremost, really when the pandemic hit, I think everyone kind of jumped 2 feet into the Teams environment, right? We kind of had to, right? And this is, I can't remember if it was a sports thing or where I gleaned this saying from, but everyone kind of regresses back to their lowest level of training. And I find that to be true, right? So if you're used to submitting an email, you submit an email. If you're used to using Teams, you use Teams. And I think that, that one positive we did gain was this kind of common platform in Teams and everyone being comfortable in using it for day-to-day processes. And that's something that we really leaned into here internally, not only for inside of CRO Canyon, but also with all of our clients. And that's basically where I want to start today. Being able to provide a purchase request form, an end user facing form for them to, submit a purchase request, right? So what I'm showing you right now is a cover sheet, for anyone within the organization to submit a purchase request. And I'll circle back to this in a bit, but what Scott mentioned during the lead-in is talking about potentially integrating this with an ERP system or a third-party tool. From a user's perspective, anyone that has access to Teams or to to SharePoint, Office 365 is going to have the ability to submit a request. Okay, interesting, but why is that important, right? I mean, you talk about, I just had this conversation with another customer, you talk about, per cost licenses for NetSuite or other third-party tools, they can get pricey, right? It can really run up what that can look like. And, if you're already paying for licenses in 365, we might as well take advantage of them. So it's really quite interesting what we can do. Now, the big piece, right? The SharePoint kind of bugaboo at times is this, what I'm showing right here. And it's quite honestly probably one of the reasons that Nitro exists is what we call associated items. So I won't go too deep into the anthology of SharePoint, but there was this tool in the on-prem world called InfoPath, right? And it was like everyone talked about it, everyone used it. On InfoPath, they had this idea of repeating rows, right? Being able to submit a table or have a table in a form and be able to lay out a table inside of a parent form, I guess is the best way to say it. So when 365 came around and InfoPath was deprecated, we kind of lost that ability, right? And I know Scott and a lot of us internally here, like, okay, how do we replicate that? How do we make that make sense? And credit to our dev team, they came up with this kind of brilliant idea, in my opinion, of linking a parent list to a child list. So a purchase request to line items, individual line items. It's its own list with its own form and its own metadata, right? And now we can do things like create a purchase catalog for them to select from, that pre-populates items, price, and then being able to populate quantity, right? Being able to store a vendor within a purchase rec or a purchase line item, right? Being able to free type in, let's say it's a hardware asset, we're gonna buy Dell laptops, right? Being able to free type in an item as opposed to pulling from that catalog. So it just gives us a lot of flexibility, not only from like a latency, right? Loading this form, from a permission structure, but also from, connecting multiple data points or data sources into, this overarching purchase rec form. So, excuse me, so it gives us not only the ability to present a form inside of a team or inside of Teams to an end user, but it also gives them a lot of flexibility to select multiple line items per purchase rec, and also associate things like accounting codes, vendors to those line items. Now, this is going to come in important. I'm going to come back to this, I promise, when we talk about the receival of goods, but I just want to touch on that because it is a big piece of what we do here and why our forms tool is as good as it is. Now, as we move through this, from the end user's experience, another thing that we talk about here a lot in our forms tool is this idea of a custom action or a workflow. So we're going to keep in the end user mindset, right? We're still going to be thinking as an end user, but just quickly, Scott mentioned Nitro Studio during the intro, and this is Nitro. It is forms, workflows. Those ones get the love, right? Those get the most attention, as they should, right? Whenever you deal with a business process, it's a form and a workflow. But there's so many other pieces of Nitro that make using Office 365 so easy and so functional versus, say, how it comes out of the box. And one of those is custom actions. Man, custom action is basically a manually invoked workflow, right? The easiest way to say it. I'm going to run the workflow when I hit this button. And why that's important? Well, maybe you want to save a purchase rec and come back to it, right? Maybe you need a bunch of quotes. You want to attach items to the purchase rec, quote items. If you work in, the government space, maybe if it's over 10K, it needs to go to out for bid. You need to collect those 3 quotes and you don't have them yet, but you want to get started, you can. Or when you're ready, you can run the workflow from here. The reason I like custom actions, everyone kind of makes fun of me for this internally, but I call them the warm and fuzzies, right? It's just green check marks on the screen to let you know that the workflow runs. I don't know, I like it, as opposed to having the form disappear and you're kind of like, did it work? Did it not work? You get that flash on the screen, hey, purchase rec is submitted for approval. Easy, simple, right? Fill out that cover sheet as the end user, your rec gets submitted, you get the notification saying your rec's been submitted, and you get rerouted, right? Now, that's the line item aspect, right? So the form aspect. Scott mentioned we do have this other feature inside of Nitro Studio called Engage. And what this does from a high level is, like, if you're talking about leveraging your SharePoint platform or your 365 platform for the entire organization, it allows you to provide a unique experience to your end users that's a bit more guided, right? So that form I showed is relying on the end user to go there, fill out the rec, and hit submit. This is maybe more guiding them through that process. They type in a command like submit purchase request and the form pops up, which I'm going to show in a second. But also holistically, it allows us to connect, as you can see, multiple applications to our Teams environment. So now when you start to take in Nitro Studio and maybe our applications at wholesale, you can see how leveraging 365 becomes a bit easier, using things like Engage or portals or Teams, right, to provide that common experience towards the end users. So now Engage in full practice, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Being able to run a command or submit a command, right? That guided experience. Hey, I want to submit a purchase request. And the form pops up as this adaptive card. Now we lose a little bit of flexibility not having that associated items piece that's multiple items rolling up to the form. This would be something like a quick purchase rec, something that's a single line item, or maybe something under a certain dollar amount, but it does provide an experience for the end user that is mobile, right? I mean, I think we're all tied to our phones in today's world, and being able to have the Teams app available and being able to submit a purchase rec on the fly really does drive user adoption, in my opinion, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if the people don't use the tool that we put in place, what's the point, right? And as I alluded to earlier, Teams has become so prevalent in today's world that making Teams accessible and easy inside of Teams is only going to increase the usage of that tool. So to kind of recap, right, that end user experience, we have the form can be embedded in Teams. Heck, they can do it inside of SharePoint too, right? Like I'm showing here. They can do it as a guided experience through the Engage feature. Now, once I hit submit, I had these messages going off in my head, these emails coming in about the request being submitted, right? So now we shift more towards the purchasing side, the internal side, right? What does that look like? What does the application look like to someone who's working the tool or working the purchase recs? First and foremost, as we saw the warm and fuzzies, the workflow ran. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means any of that metadata that we captured on that rec form, we want to run an approval process on it, right? I mean, more often than not, when we submit a purchase rec, we have to get it approved. So is it the type of purchase? Is it the amount of purchase? Is it the vendor? Is it the accounting code? What information are we pulling from the form? And how does that information detail out the approval process? What we do is we look at the back end. So what the workflow is, it's like, okay, a rec is submitted, and now it goes out and it looks at this approval levels list. Who is the right person to approve this rec that Ryan submitted? And as you can see here, well, they're all me. Obviously, it's my demo, right? I kid. But it can be anything. It can be the type of purchase. It can be the amount of purchase. It can be the department. I mean, you guys know, like, as long as we capture the information on the form or in the application, we can run the approval process on it, right? So it gives us a lot of flexibility in how many levels of approvers we can have, and what data we're capturing on the form and how it can be routed. So, okay, rec is submitted. We're querying this approval levels list. We found the approver. Okay, so now what does that look like? Okay, let's come in and look at these purchase recs pending approval. Shameless plug. Here's some of the other features of Nitro, the tiles web part, our reports, our list views. It does make it easier to navigate Office 365, in my opinion, to be able to kind of see things at a glance or click in or drill down. But let's get back on task, right? The technician's perspective, the internal side, okay? Here's our purchase rec, the one we just submitted, right? So now we've got the notifications. The approval task has been created. Associated items. See, I told you I'd come back to it, right? Now this, going back to that, parent task, or parent form, child task mindset we talked about, line items, comes up again here in the approval task list. So our approver got a notification that a new purchase rec has been submitted, right? And now what they can do is they can follow that link, and it takes them to the backend site, to the form, where they can see the cover sheet and come in and make a decision on the approval task. And here's our custom actions, right? Our workflows to let them either approve, deny, or send back the form. Actually quite interesting, that send back piece. You can send back the rec to the end user. Hey, I need you to update this, or one of the quotes didn't load. So it's not like a full cancellation and having to resubmit. It does give us the flexibility to go and send the rec back to the user. But let's say we are going to approve. What's nice about this, as it flashed up there, is that check permissions piece, that feature, right? So we want to make sure that the right approver gets the task, and only the person who's assigned to the approval task can approve it, right? So that's why we build in those custom actions to limit or to make it specific to the approver, right? We don't want someone coming in and approving an item that it's not supposed to, so we can lock that down. Now we can get into some other topics. And again, if you're interested or you have some questions about, if approvers can be changed based on someone's on vacation, the answer, absolutely. I won't go into too much detail during the demo, but if you do want to talk about it, just give us a shout. Like Scott said, reach out to us. Now about these approval tasks, I've always, the idea of bringing up the task and having someone, use the custom action to approve it is nice. I mean, it makes sense linearly, right? If we're looking at this application of end user and technician and approver. But getting people to come in and fill out tasks, I don't know, it's always tricky. It's always like kind of like, oh, I have to click a button, I have to click on the form. Why can't you just do it via email? So I love the task, like that's how my mind works. I love that like task completion aspect of it, but we can also leverage email. So here's this request that we just submitted, right, 8 minutes ago, and it gives us all of the details of the purchase rec in the body of the email, description, line items, right? And then as you can see here, they can approve this task through the email feature. So if they click on approved, what we do is we parse the email title, and then any comments they add get added to the task, right? If I can type. So it gives it a little bit of automation there, right? So instead of relying on the user or the approver to go in and approve the task, they can do it now via email. And as you can see, my notifications are firing off for the second level. But another cool feature too is using Engage. So we talked a little bit about this from the end user's experience, right? Being able to submit a purchase request through a command. Well, the same thing can be done for the approvers, right? So kind of imagine this, right? You're working, and all of a sudden you get a message pop up saying, hey, you need to approve, this purchase rec or this purchase line item. It can come to you as directly as a Teams message, right? I will admit was against this at first. I was like, I don't want to be bothered, and it's like I'm being texted. And then it eventually grew on me. I don't know. I just feel like I work faster, right? If it's in front of my face and I can update this request on the fly, as opposed to pinning an email and coming back to it. I feel like I'm more efficient working through Teams because it's so easy. And again, if I'm on my phone and I'm on the move, I can quickly approve something and update that task without even having to open up the backend application. So now you can see Engage not only working from the end user's perspective, but also involving our approvers and heck, even our technicians as well. Cool. So approvals, right? We talked about approvals. We talked about end users, form submission, line items. We talked about approvers, finding the correct approvers based off of the metadata that we captured on the form, right? The various ways approvers can update the task, whether it be through the task itself, through email, or through that automation around Teams, right? So we've submitted the request, we've approved the request, right? So now here is where we kind of hit that hinge point, like Scott was talking about. Okay, let's look at all of our approved items right now. Let's grab this guy right here. So we've captured our approvals. The internal staff is notified, right? The purchasing team is notified, finance is notified. Now what happens? This is where it can go one of two ways. So in certain situations like, oh gosh, in California, it's called like Fiscal. We did some in Texas as well. I think it's called Texas Buy Smart, with some private customers, NetSuite, QuickBooks, but basically creating this wrapper around that ERP system. So what I mean by that is someone has come to me and said, hey, all I need is the purchase rec and the approval process, and then I'm gonna have all that, I'm gonna have the purchase order be created in that third-party ERP system, right? We're gonna transfer all that information to the ERP system, and we're gonna track it there. And I just wanna be able to leverage Office 365 to create purchase recs, right? To not have to pay for additional licenses, like I mentioned earlier, for anyone in my tenancy to be able to submit a purchase rec. Great, no problem. We can build integrations to have it be automated, right, inside of our workflow tool. And again, if I showed it, I'm gonna go in the weeds, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, someone stop this guy, because I'll talk for hours. So just kind of know that we can build out connections to those tools, right? And now the flip side is tracking the receivable of goods through the tool. So what that looks like for the purchase order process is it's basically, the status of the request and the receivable of the line items, right? So we're going to track this buy new laptop as a purchase order. Okay, so here we go, buy new laptop, right? And when I show these drop downs, like let's say update PO status. Any of these column drop downs, like I should have mentioned this earlier, so I apologize, but hey, my nomenclature is different, or I want to look at a form a little differently, or I want to capture different information, no problem. I mean, the forms tool is included, Nitro Studio is included, so we have that autonomy to go in and make changes. You have that autonomy to go and make changes, or work with my team to make sure that the form is exactly the way you want it to be when you go live. But updating PO status, right? Not yet ordered, unordered. Essentially, the reason that, again, you saw the warm and fuzzies, right? The custom actions. The reason we use those is because it takes the human error out of it a little bit. That's automatically updating the end user, the request submitter, to let them know that, hey, your items are on order. We've already let them know that, your request has been approved, but now we can keep them engaged along the way to let them know that, hey, items are on order, or, it's, everything's been received and you should have it soon. So we don't get the endless chain of emails from your end users letting you know that they're waiting for their goods, right? Now, the other aspect of this, and this goes back to my associated items piece. I know, beating a dead horse, I get it. I know, but bear with me. So the reason that it's important to have that table format inside of the purchase rec or the purchase order form is now that we can track these line items as independent entities, right? I mean, anyone who's ordered anything from Amazon, I'll just use that as an example. In the last year, you order 3 items on the same day and they come from 3 separate boxes, right? So it's like, okay, how do I track those as independent line items? And that's what we use associated items for. It gives us that ability. I mean, even being able to break it up into, let's say these ship independently. Desktops are a large shipment. Maybe we're getting 5 at a time. So now not only can we update the quantity, you also put some permissions in place here so no one can go in and change it after the fact, which is nice. Just again, from a reporting perspective, doesn't throw anything off or doesn't throw anything haywire. And we've also built in some contingencies, right? This is partially received, and now we've got 5 out of 10. And I get this question a lot. Probably every demo I do is like, hey, can I see the version history? Can I see the audit log? Absolutely. You can see who approved purchase recs. You can also see when items were received, what items were received, and who received them. So you can go back at any point in time and have a look and see, a history of a purchase rec or a purchase order. Now, things like this next piece are for people like me who move too fast. And they go, hey, I got all 10. And they're 5 today, I got all 10. I'm like, hey, hold on a second, right? you got 5 already, right? You're going to throw off my report, or you're going to throw off my my version history if you say you got 10 today and 5 yesterday. So it just does eliminate that human error again to hopefully avoid those issues where now you have all 10 and you've tracked the 2 different times in which they've come in. And I didn't even get into the Nitro Studio aspect. So we've received our hardware assets, and now Nitro as its own independent entity has not been yet received. So I know I've talked about it a lot, but it really is, this associated items piece mixed in with this ability to invoke workflows on the form really does come in handy. It is nice, it does give us a lot of flexibility with what we can do on the form, but also from, like I said, that permission structure. So now I'm gonna fill out some information on the form while I talk. One of the big things that we had an issue with internally, like a problem to solve. I'm just gonna sign this real quick. Here, we do have integrations with like DocuSign right now. So if you want to have things signed via DocuSign, that's a possibility. Adobe, I think we're working on. Quote me if I'm wrong, Scott, but or let me know if I'm wrong.
Adobe eSign, yeah.
eSign, yeah. Okay, DocuSign, eSign. So the signature piece, you can either use ours out of the box or integrate with one of those tools. But I'm gonna fill out some of these items here as I talk. Now, one of the big things for us was like, okay, if we are going to, use this Rex or this order side, it's like, how do we create a purchase requisition or a physical, not purchase rec, a physical PO, right? Anyone who's used SharePoint will know that printing can be kind of tough, right? It can be a little tricky. So what we've done, it's probably the most underrated tool or most understated tool in my opinion in Nitro, is this print manager. But essentially it gives us the ability to create unique print templates for, like in this case, a purchase order. So maybe we want to copy information from the order and send it to the vendor, right? Is it a signature? Is it the line items? And we hit this print button at the top. And now we have this clean, easy print template, which we can, as you can see, create a unique header. Here's that information populating from the request, my signature, and we can actually email it directly from here. So it gives us the ability to create a PDF for the order and send it to the vendor of choosing, all from one interface. So back to that, point of topic of, okay, wrapper, right? We talked about the wrapper, third-party tools, but the folks who want to use and are looking for a receival system as well, you do have that ability to create a unique template specific to your organization, right? So if you want something that's creating PDFs or physical orders, that's a possibility using Print Manager as well. Okay. Receival of goods, or sorry, submission of purchase rec, approval process, right? Either shifting that information to an ERP system or tracking system or tracking purchase orders internally, right, through this system. Next step would be like reports. I mean, really the easy way to say reports is, as long as the information's in the system, we can report on it. Be status by month, by department. Reporting is a part of our application, and creating a report is, well, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but if I can do it, you can do it, right? And the idea is that it's basically just selecting from drop-down. So we want to find a list we want to report on, maybe purchase recs, purchase orders. Let's do purchase recs. And we'll do all of them. And maybe we want to see a bar chart of, maybe purchases made by department, right? So we'll do department, it's alphabetical, Ryan. Department, and we'll do account, right? So we don't need a y-axis, we just want to see department. Okay, we're going to do it on the ID, we're going to do account, we're going to do a drill down. So this is actually really interesting. Well, while I run this, I want to show you guys something. Here you go. None without a department, 11 for IT, 1 for payroll, 2 for sales. What I find interesting is actually being able to drill down into these two. Well, why do we have 11 purchases in IT? Show me those. And you can click on it and it brings you right to all those 11 purchase recs. which is actually really cool. It's just an easy way to navigate the tool. And then you start to bring in the print tool as well. And let's say the IT manager says, hey, show me my 11 recs. You can actually pull a print as well to pull it into a PDF and email it to them. So not only can we use the graphical interface for reports, but also the print manager for a more physical data too. And I get this, I forget to mention this at times, but exporting, you can always export to Excel as well. Okay. So P's and Q's, right? Internally reports, things like that. We talked about the end user interface. We talked about the approvals, the receivable of goods. Now, quickly, I'm going to show this last piece, this Nitro interface. I won't spend too much time here because, well, Scott giggled earlier. He knows that I'll go, spend hours on Nitro just as either the forms tool or the workflow tool. But I do just want to touch on it briefly because we want to talk about that other permission group. Right, the admins, and those are gonna be the folks that have the ability to come in and change the form or admin the application.
It if also shows the great flexibility of the program too.
Exactly, great point, Scott. Yeah,
we could go deep into Nitro Studio, but like you say, Ryan, we want to keep it just focused on purchase request and how you can modify it nicely to meet your specific needs. Yeah, great.
Exactly. I think that's the nail on the head, really. I mean, the big questions I get when people come to me for purchasing are, can I change the form? What does the approval process look like? And like we talked about, is that connected to other third-party tools? From a form flexibility perspective, absolutely. You have access to Nitro as a part of the application. You can go in and you can add tabs. You can remove tabs. You can create columns. You can remove columns, right? Basically, it's intended to be power user centric, right? So you can go in and make changes on the fly to the form that are in line with your internal requirements, right? Maybe 2022 is one version of the purchase rec, but in 2023, we need to capture new data. Easy, come into the form designer and add those columns in, right? Now we do have different levels. You can be a little bit more developer centric, calling out to third-party tools, injecting code or script onto the form. We'll save that for another time and another day, but it does give you the ability, like I said, to make this form your own, be able to move it around. Heck, really anything from a design perspective. Maybe you like the vertical layout as opposed to the horizontal, but this is really where the power of the tool starts to shine, is that it's inside of your Office 365 environment. It's leveraging your existing space, your users, and now your admin staff have the ability to make the tool your own. Okay, so end users, form submission, approvers, backend staff, admins. We talked about reporting. So I've run through everything that I wanted to get through. Scott, were there any questions that I needed to address while we were having it up?
Yeah, one was about adding attachments, and that certainly can be done, right, in the form, no problem, right?
Absolutely, yeah, I'll show that right now. Anytime, at any point, you can add attachments to the form. It's here at the bottom, being able to add attachments.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We could also link it to a document library. If people had documents in a library, we could link it to a library in SharePoint and pull in documents from there, like, I don't know, quotes, work orders, requisitions, whatever goes along with the purchase request and purchase order. I think you showed the level of the kind of levels of approval, kind of how sophisticated that can get. If you want, it can be simple or complex, right? Depending on your approval level. Any criteria that you want, that was in there. You showed that. And then other people asked about integration. Excuse me. Vendor order systems, which I guess are similar. Okay, here's one. Here's one. We have a high volume of POs going out the door to various vendors for parts. We have connection to some of their systems for select prices, which is then incorporated into our PO. I see. So what I think the point there is that they want to query the vendor database or vendor catalog, you might say, for their specific pricing, because they get high volume, volume discounts, I imagine is what we're talking about, right?
Right.
So we have to figure that out. We can make it work. I mean, the purchase items is, it's like external data column connecting to SQL or connecting through web APIs to different different databases and pulling that information in. It sounds to me like building a catalog, a nice catalog, you know, or like
That can
having it
be
updated in real
dynamic and
time.
yeah, exactly. Dynamic and flexible to say like, okay, when I select vendors, you know, ABC item, it queries that database and it pulls the correct price in dynamically so the vendor doesn't, or the customer doesn't have to worry about, did I select the right price, etc. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Definitely possible. Yeah.
if you look at the product and service catalog, you know, feature in our purchase request program, I think you where is it? It's in there, purchase catalog, right? And one of those items, you know, just like say open one of them, just for example, that cost, of course, is entered in manually right now, but it could be pulled from a dynamic database through that external data connection you were just showing. What we'd have here, person's name is Tammy. Hi, Tammy. It would be Tammy. We would have a. I was going to say, I forgot.
We would have a
Sorry.
call. We would basically have the connection between that SharePoint record, that SharePoint column to the database column to say like, okay, when we select this item, pull information from that SQL table and populate the price into, where am I? The target column.
Into the purchase catalog, so it would show
Mhm.
up right then and there on it. Of course, you can pull in any other information too. Oh, I was going to say, you'd have a unique ID of a part number. You know, that's really what. I mean, this is kind of meant a little bit internal, but we certainly add easily, like Ryan was showing you with the Nitro forms, add a field called part number. So that part number here will correspond with the part number in the supplier's catalog. And by making the query using the part number, you'd say, hello, SQL database, I want to know the current price of item number, blah, blah, part number, blah, blah, blah. And the SQL server says, okay, here you go. And then it goes into the cost here and becomes a, you know, regularly update. It depends how often they update it, or if it has to be done in real time. Either way, it could be done to update this so that when they choose it in the purchase request item, it's the most accurate it can be.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And like this purchase catalog's, you know, even in our demo, we should add more fields to it, like part number or other SKU or something like that, you know, just to make it look more real, you know, how people actually use the program, because people do add a lot to it. That's what I was just saying, Ryan, at the beginning, was that this is every process is a little bit particular to their situation, right? So that's why, you know, you're showing how flexible it is really good, because it shows that you can add fields, you can add drop lists, you can add like this database integration we're talking about right now.
Right, exactly. I don't think I've ever ran into a purchase process that was the same as somebody else's. It was always unique to the organization I was working with. In
It's
the
so true.
9-10 years I've been doing this now, right? It's always been very specific to the organization, and that's where these intricate processes are interesting. And using Nitro gives us that flexibility to, you know, to meet them.
Right. And another question along the same line: is there a way to also track estimated lead times? I think that means how long before something comes in to be delivered. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how I would read that as well. You know, we purchase something and it has a tracking number to it, and it's, you know, 3 days out, or it's shipped from New Jersey today, and when is it estimated to be in? Yeah, again, it would be okay. Where is that information being stored? What system is it in? Is it in the VAR or whatever those tracking items are? And then yeah, I don't see it being a problem. We just have to look at it.
It would be really cool is to have on the line item that UPS, you know, tracking number. Yeah, or
Yeah, that's what
FedEx,
I was
whatever it
thinking.
is,
Yeah.
tracking number. So you just click and see it, you know, when the products can be delivered. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, it just, because I mean, I get it when I order from Amazon or Dell or something, they give you a tracking number, you know.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, you know, even the post office gives you that long, you click it and it tells you, oh, it's going to arrive next Wednesday or something. And that would be really cool if that's, yeah. Okay, it's
Uh,
more when vendor receive part for them to be able to ship it out to us.
oh yeah, I mean it just depends. Like that part depends on you guys internally. Like, hey, do you want to update the end user that, oh hey, vendors received it. It's on order. It's 3 days away, or it's 5 days away. So it just, or you know, 6 months away, right? So it'll be dependent upon how that information is received from the vendor and how you want to communicate it to the end user. But with our notifications and our workflows, I mean, that's a whole heck of a lot easier than what Scott and I were just conceptualizing, but yeah, absolutely, you can notify your end users on lead time, etc.
Right. There's a lot of that communication back and forth when we pass information from our system, such as who requested it or who's responsible for this purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it usually happens once it's approved. So there's two elements to this purchase request. First, you got to get the thing approved. Now, some are self-approved in that, say you're buying, you have authority to buy anything under $1,000 or 10,000 or something, and that doesn't need approval. That process is in there also. But if it does need approval, it goes through approval process. Then it's like, okay, now we're ready to order it, put it into the procurement or however it's ordered, and then that's this communication back and forth with the vendor starts to take place.
Right.
I mean, we talked about the earlier where the vendor is updating, the supplier is updating the prices that before the purchase is created, purchase request created. But once it's ordered, there's another communication with the vendor and the supplier, like when's it going to be delivered. And you were talking about line items being clarity about whether, the 10, like line item 1 was delivered or half of it was delivered, but line item 2 has not been delivered, those kind of things, right?
Right, exactly. And then also providing lead times for each individual line item as well. Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
long lead times for many parts. This is a supply chain issue, huh? People are running into this at some organizations, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very important to put into the program more and more now. That's a good. I mean, thank you for that comment because it does make us realize that with the supply chain issues and getting the stuff in is just because you order it doesn't mean it's going to show up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We've
So
been
waiting on a
spoiled by
couch I ordered
Amazon,
9
right?
months ago. Yeah.
So it's up
Exactly.
2 days later.
Mhm.
Something with Prime. But anyways, so let's look. We'll build that in the best way we can with the information. If you're going to want to work with us on that, it definitely is doable. It's just a matter of getting the communication going with the vendor, so they're communicating with us.
Right.
So some kind of API that this will be delivered, sometime in 2024 or something like that. Hopefully.
Yeah. 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 It's actually really interesting. It reminds me of another customer we worked with that was the furniture, like furniture delivery, like furnishings, whether it be kitchen or living room or bedroom, and then their parts would come from a third-party vendor, and then when the vendor would update their SQL system, it would fire off a notification workflow for our customer to automatically notify their end user, hey, vendor has updated, that stove ABC is 6 months out. So it kind of took the middleman out of it, of having to go from vendor to customer to internal team to request submitter, and it went, just automated a notification to the end user. So we've done it, for other clients. It just would be, a matter of taking, those requirements and applying it to, the business case for
Ryan,
Tammy.
it can even be as simple as the vendor sends an email to a certain email address, and our email parsing capabilities, which we certainly have, just like we have for the ticketing system and everything else, work order. It takes that email apart, parses it, looks at it, and says, oh, this is related to purchase order number, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And we're going to now update that purchase order and whoever's involved with that purchase order with the new delivery information,
Exactly, and heck, even take advantage of Engage and give them a notification through Teams to let them know that their request is 5 months away, 3 days away, etc.
Right. They were expecting it like 2 weeks now. It's going to come on the 12th of never,
Right, exactly.
No,
Cool.
I'm just kidding. It'll show up some point.
Great. Well,
I have a sense of humor about this stuff, right?
yeah, exactly. Cool.
So that'd be a great project. I'd be glad. Yeah, hopefully, we'll email you, Tammy, and if you want to talk more about it, it'd be great. And anyone else who's on this call, and we appreciate that kind of interaction. Maybe we can put something together that really work well, and it's a great challenge, and really we can bend and twist Nitro and make it do it, jump through hoops, right, Ryan, and do all kinds.
Yeah, it's wild, really. Recently, we've really seen the power of it. It's really quite interesting what we can do.
Yeah. Help launch that rocket. Remember, we don't want to go into details, but it was like some rocket that we were involved in, our software. So we were pretty proud of that, but we won't go into
very
much more than that.
Complex application use cases for our applications. Very interesting.
Right. That's all we can say on that.
Great. Well, Yeah, sales at crowcanyon.com. My first name dot, or, first name dot my last name at Crow Canyon, Ryan.Stefani, Scott.Restivo at Crow Canyon. Any one of those will get you in the right, get you on the right path to contacting us.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Scott for hosting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. Great
Yeah.
presentation. Appreciate it. All right.
Absolutely. Bye guys.
Thank everyone for attending. Okay. Have a good day. Okay, bye.